If you ask old Jack Burton, a battle mech ain't nothing but a 16-wheeler on two legs, and that's right up my alley. So I'm here to show you how to install RougeTech on a Steam Deck. So the goal here is to install a third-party mod on an unfamiliar OS for most. And this is for a video game that can run on Windows, Mac, and really on two not insignificantly different ways on Linux. I'm not gonna lie, it's a whole lot of steps. But when the going gets rough, you just remember what old Jack Burton said. He said, remember what the RougeTech wiki said. Now, old Jack Burton isn't new to installing mods on Linux or Macs. But to get this done on the Steam Deck, we're going to have to put together everything we've learned up till now. And so we're going to break this down into a couple of sections. There's going to be the part where you install the game. There's going to be a part where you install the mod. And there's going to be the part where you tweak the Steam Deck to be able to handle all this. Any questions? Now, one thing that we do need to talk about that's serious here is the good guys. Alright? I'm talking about the hardworking men and women behind RougeTech, the ones behind BTA. I'm talking about the modders, okay? What we don't want to do is open up support tickets with these people, asking them how to install their mod on a Steam Deck for a couple of reasons. Alright? They're mostly Windows shops. Alright? They've been really cool about trying to get things to work in Linux and Mac, but what we don't want to do is generate a bunch of ticket traffic for them about stuff that they literally just don't have the hardware to try and test. Alright, this first part's not too difficult, but it's also really important. What we're looking at right here is we've logged into the Steam Deck. We are at the desktop level. We have launched the Steam application itself, and we're now about to download the game. But we're going to go into compatibility before we do so and intentionally choose the Steam Linux runtime. The reason for this is kind of weird. It looks like what the Steam client on the Steam Deck is doing most of the time is downloading the Windows versions of games and then running them under Proton. For the purpose of what we're doing right here, we're going to try and run this Linux game natively on the Linux OS, and so we're going to outsmart its own behavior here and tell it to run as Linux. Don't download the Windows version of BattleTech, download the Linux version of BattleTech. Now the game will take a while to download. Alright, now it has downloaded. What you want to do is launch the game one time unmodded, just to make sure that it launches and just so that it will create the local folders and stuff like that and cache and blah blah blah. When you're done, do like we're doing here and open up that local folder, because we're going to wind up saving something in an adjacent folder to it real quick. So here's the website as of a couple of months ago. Go ahead and download the exe. And at the Steam common folder level, create a folder called the RougeTech launcher or whatever you want to call it. Just don't save it inside the BattleTech folder. It'll cause problems. Trust me. So if you're keeping up, I want to make sure that you've got hidden files turned on. We're going to launch a terminal, and we're going to give the Steam Deck user a password. So we've kind of drifted over into the tweak the Steam Deck zone at this point. I've got all of this documented in the notes, so we're going to fast forward through most of this. Besides, old Jack Burton mistyped a bunch of things, and the notes are right, and the video is just fun to watch. In fact, what I think we need is some background music. All right, so we've got some dependencies set up. We've got a wine environment set up. So let's take just a second and have a sanity check, okay? What we're doing is we're about to launch the Windows application, the Rogue Launcher, under a wine environment and use it to generate the mod itself. We will not be using the wine environment to actually play the video game in. We're just going to generate the mod files themselves, drop them in the place that the Linux application is expecting them, and run the game as a Linux native game rather than a Windows game running in Wine on Linux. So what you see us doing here, from the Rogue Launcher folder that we made, we're going to wine roguelauncher.exe, launch this Windows application so that we can use it to generate the mod files. Most of what we're doing here is just giving it the correct paths. Follow the instructions. Outstanding. Now that we have all this set correctly, we are going to generate the mod, and this will take a while. Now, it's worth mentioning that it is possible to generate the mods folder on a different computer and copy it over to the SteamDeck, but it's probably out of the scope of what we're talking about right here. And again, please do not open a support ticket with BTA support or RougeTech support asking them how to do any of that. If you're super curious, you can look at the Mac install instructions that are up on the BTA wiki, because it does detail how to go to a second computer, generate the mods folder, and copy it over. Those same concepts apply here, but you don't have to do that. You can do it all on the SteamDeck. I mean, I just want my truck back, you know? Alright, picking up where we left off, we've kind of drifted back over into tweak the SteamDeck land. What we're doing here is increasing the number of open files that it can handle. Once again, just follow the instructions. What you're going to see here on the screen is for reference. I've actually already done the work. So sit back and relax. You know, old Jack Burton loves to increase the number of open files the Linux operating system can handle. And that's what we just did right there. I don't know about you, but I feel pretty good. Just don't forget to restart the SteamDeck after changing those open file limits. Now back to the RougeTech mod itself. After the mod files themselves have downloaded and merged, you're going to be presented with a number of ways to configure the mod itself. I recommend going with a very basic config at first, but don't make it completely devoid of everything, because that'll cause a problem. You need to check some stuff. You know, do something like check one out of everything, but don't check everything. At least not at first. You know, get something that works for you, make sure it works, then go back into the setup and select everything you want. That way you'll have a baseline. If things act screwy, you'll be able to know that, you know, I had these options selected and the game worked. I added a couple other things and then it stopped working. That's called troubleshooting. Jack Burton's real good at it. Seriously though, and to the point, you want to deselect the Corgi performance fixes and do not use the new fire, use the old fire. Those are the only two things you really need to worry about that are busted for Linux with this that I'm aware of, and it's true for both BTA and RougeTech. Just deselect those options, you'll be fine. Okay, just two big things to do left. we're going to set a larger page file, and then we're going to fix the shell script that launches the mod with the game. Once again, just follow the instructions, and what we got up on the screen is for reference. Alright, increasing the swap file like that will allow the game to play without running out of memory. The last little piece here is setting the permissions on a shell script that is executed by the Steam application when the game launches. You'll need to set those permissions on the file, as well as going to the properties of the game and tell it to launch that shell script, as we are doing right here. Thank you to the RougeTech people for having these instructions on their wiki. It was crucial. So if there's any secret sauce to this whole thing, it's right here. As a function of us downloading the Linux version of the game and telling it to run with the Linux Steam runtime, we have to launch that shell script for the mod to work right, and doing that on the SteamDeck requires you to use the following path to the shell interpreter. So finally, it's just time to run the game. The only gotcha is that you don't use the RougeTech launcher to launch the game. You launch it from within Steam, and if you're using the Steam Deck normally, that would be the big fat buttons that it lands you on the big screen mode when you first turn it on. So a few final thoughts here. In my experience, using the BTA 3062 installer, so similar to the RougeTech installer, works just the same way. I'm not going to bother to show you all that because old Jack Burton's got to get back to it. So it'll be a little tricky to do tech support for this kind of thing. I don't really intend on checking YouTube comments religiously. I am on Reddit. There is a BattleTech Mods Reddit. What we don't want to do is open a bunch of support tickets asking crazy questions of these beautiful modders who have made such a wonderful thing for us. But let's see if we can get together somewhere online that makes sense and answer each other's questions and improve this process, maybe document it a little better. I don't know, I'm open for ideas. But in the meantime, you just remember what old Jack Burton said. When some nasty looking clanner with a Gauss rifle looks you in the eye and says, "Have you paid your dues?" You just tell him, "Yeah, the C bills are in the mail."